In the TCG, competitive Pokemon has three formats. You have your standard play, which is the number of sets that are currently in rotation, and then you also have the expanded format, which includes all sets from Black and White forward, which allows for a metagame that is less predictable and more varied. And as of right now, there are no cards banned from Standard. I don't think there's been a card banned from Standard since Lysander's trump card back in the X and Y days around Phantom Forces. But the expanded format does have a growing list of banned cards, because when new cards are printed, they could accidentally, cause combos with older cards back from the Black and White sets that could really cause for uneven play. So in this video, I want to look at all of the currently banned cards from the expanded format, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Here's a really great example with Archeops. When this card was printed, it was really nothing special. It has the same ability basically as that fossil Aerodactyl that many of you are probably familiar with, where no evolution cards can be played from either player's hands as long as this ability is active. But Archeops was printed in an era of Black and White where the biggest deck at the time was Outrage, which just used Reshiram and Zekrom. Evolution Pokemon were rarely used, but as the formats developed and you moved into X and Y, you started to get Mega Evolutions. Later on, you ended up with Break Evolutions, and then many popular GX cards were Evolutions, and the Pokemon Company doesn't want to discourage the play of these cards. But that's not enough to get a card banned. The reason it's actually banned is because it can be part of a combo that does create a very unfair advantage. Using Battle Compressor, you can put Archeops into your discard straight out of your deck, and then use Maxie's Hidden Ball trick to pull it right back out of the discard and put it onto the playing field, where you can effectively lock Evolution turn 1 and refresh your hand all at once. I think the Pokemon Company thought that it was probably going to be too difficult to actually get down to only this card in your hand and then play it, but especially in expanded format, that's actually pretty easy to do. And you also have to consider that the expanded format uses both EX and GX Pokemon, and if you remember correctly, EX Pokemon are all basics, so they require no evolution, but some GX Pokemon do require you to evolve up into them. So if almost every expanded deck has this ability to combo Archeops and Maxie's Hidden Ball trick to lock evolution on turn 1, then that pretty much means everyone's gonna have to use these really powerful EX Pokemon and kind of forego the GX Pokemon, which isn't really the point of the expanded format. You want to keep the variety alive. You don't want to confine players to only running certain types of decks. So along those lines, Maxie's Hidden Ball trick is another card that is banned from expanded because it doesn't just stop with Archeops. You can do this with any type of fighting Pokemon, so it also helps to future-proof the expanded format just in case an extremely powerful fighting type Pokemon does come out that is maybe a stage 2 evolution card. You don't want to be able to play that down turn 1 using this combo. Along those same lines, we have another banned card, which is the Forest of Giant Plants, which allows you to evolve your grass Pokemon the same turn that you play them, which in itself can create a very uneven playing field if there's a lot of powerful grass Pokemon that people want to use. But the reason that it was banned is much more general. The expanded format is very item heavy. There are tons of item cards that are played, and Forest of Giant Plants allows you to play Vileplume turn 1 and effectively item lock the game on turn 1, most likely rendering a huge chunk of your opponent's deck useless. So it does hurt the level of competitive sportsmanship and the overall metagame in general. A lot of people would argue that, yeah, that is just part of the metagame and you have to account for that in your deck building. I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments about which of these ban decisions you actually agree with. But let's move on to our next banned card, which is Wally. And Wally is really just a one-time use Forest of Giant Plants that you can use for any Pokemon that isn't an EX. And at the time of release, this was a great card for the metagame because most people were relying on powerful basic EX cards, and this really helped bump up the use of evolution cards. But once again, the problem that this presents is that you can play Trevenant on turn 1 and effectively item lock the game from the get-go, and again, that's just not great for the expanded metagame since decks rely so heavily on items, and you don't want a series of Pokemon running around that can completely prevent the use of an entire branch of trainer cards. And because Expanded is so reliant on items, once again we have Getsus being banned because it could create a huge turn 1 disadvantage if your opponent's having to get rid of a large number of cards in their hand, and it's also letting you draw. And if you do get Getsus on your first turn and a huge chunk of your hand is discarded, really the only way to recover is if you have a Shaymin EX or Tapu Lele GX in your hand, or if you can top draw one at the very least. Of all of the item cards that do exist in the expanded format, one of them did get banned, and that is Puzzle of Time. So if you play 2 Puzzle of Times at the same time, you can instantly get 2 cards out of your discard back into your hand. And boy oh boy do I agree with this ban, because you could use this card to get back other trainer cards that I think should have been banned in themselves, the main one being Hypnotoxic Laser. In my years of playing the TCG, I don't know if I've hated another card so much as Hypnotoxic Laser, because it can be so disruptive across the board to all strategies. During the Black and White and X and Y eras, I felt like every single deck ran 4 copies of this card, and with Puzzle of Time, you could get back a Hypnotoxic Laser and a Puzzle of Time and just cycle through that over and over again, playing Hypnotoxic Laser over and over. And this also applied to cards like Crushing Hammer, which could also be super disruptive and game leveling. In the expanded format, you can combo Puzzle of Time with Zoroark GX and Mallow to basically get the exact cards you want from your deck every single turn. And Zoroark GX is already frustratingly versatile, so you don't really want to give it an even higher advantage and prevalence in the metagame by making it so that your deck will run perfectly just as you want it every single turn. Here's a controversial one that actually got under my skin a little bit whenever it was banned. Hexmaniac is a great card, and it was a necessity when it came out to help counter strategies that relied heavily on abilities. And it was a supporter card, so there was a fair exchange for the power of the card and the cost of playing it. And the justification given by the Pokemon Company for why this card was banned is that because of Versus Seeker, you could replay this card multiple times much too easily, and it effectively locked down decks that relied on abilities. But here's what's more likely, and that was that Hexmaniac blocked the setup ability from coming into play if your opponent wanted to play Shaymin EX, which is a great card. It helps you get your setup just like the ability says. It helps refresh your hand. But also, at the height of its usage, Shaymin EX was an $80 card. People were buying packs left and right just trying to get this thing, not only for the resale value, but it was probably better to spend $80 on packs to try to get a Shaymin EX than just shell out the money for one card. So if you have a single supporter card in use that effectively stops Shaymin EX from being useful, well, there goes your booster pack sales, and it's also going to help regulate the response from the player community that has already spent all this money to get Shaymin EX. But that's just my opinion on why it was banned. I would love to hear thoughts from other people as well. Just post them down there in those comments. Our next card banned from Expanded is Delinquent, which is a straight up disruption card. It's actually pretty fun to play. You discard Stadium in play, and then your opponent discards 3 cards from their hand. Like most other cards on this list, it is a supporter that can create an unfair combo with red card or peeking red card that can really make the game uneven from turn 1. So if you play red card and then play a Stadium and then play Delinquent, you can basically reduce your opponent's hand size down to 1. And using Versus Seeker, you could do this combo over and over again and really mill through your opponent's hand and deck pretty quick. It was an even more powerful version of the Trapper deck, which if you've been watching my channel, you know I love Trapper. So you can check out that video if you're not familiar, but it was basically a deck that was so powerful in its combo, reducing the size of your opponent's hand, that Wizards of the Coast created an entirely new format to stop it from being used. Oh, and speaking of combos, we finally made it to this banned Unknown card, with the damage ability. If this unknown is your active Pokemon and there's a total of 66 damage counters on your bench Pokemon, you automatically win the game. That seems incredibly difficult to do, but in the expanded format you have a lot more tools to work with, and that code was cracked. First, you're going to play Team Magma's Secret Base, which puts 2 damage counters on any basic Pokemon coming into play. You will also be playing a Sneasel and a Solosis. On your next turn, hopefully you will get a very bulky Pokemon that can hold a lot of damage counters, like maybe a Wailord Magikarp GX tag team, and you will also be playing down a Klefki and then putting 2 damage counters on it thanks to Team Magma's Secret Base. Evolve the Solosis into a Reuniclus and use the damage swap ability to move the damage counters off of Klefki and the other basic Pokemon onto that bulky Pokemon that you played down. Now you'll want to get your unknown into the active position and then use Klefki's Wonderlock ability to attach it to any other Pokemon in play. Then evolve that Sneasel into a Weavile and use Tearaway to send that Klefki back to your hand. Then play the Klefki again down onto your bench, put the 2 damage counters on it, and then rinse and repeat over and over again until you have exactly 66 damage counters across all the Pokemon on your bench, and you have created a turn 2 win condition. This combo was originally created by Stefan Ivanov, and he posted an article about it, and the Pokemon Company was very quick to just go ahead and ban this unknown card outright, even though it hadn't really been tested in a competitive format yet. I think it was in maybe 1 tournament and it didn't even place. I've tried building this deck myself and testing it out, and even though Ivanov claims that this is a consistent turn 2 win, it usually took me at least 4 turns to get this set up, so it wasn't as consistent, at least not for me. But loading down the deck with trainers like Trainer Mail, Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, and Lily, you can really get these Pokemon super quick, and it is a very easy win once you get all of these cards together. But I feel like if it was going to stay around in Expanded, people would know how to deal with it. So let's just move on to Lusamine. This card was mainly being abused for its ability to just get 2 supporters out of your discard and put back into your hand. So what players were actually doing was playing Lusamine just to get a Lusamine back from your discard and another supporter. So there was a constant recycling of whatever supporter you wanted to reuse, and it wasn't exactly healthy for a metagame since you could just basically spam one supporter over and over again, and that's kind of just always been a problem with the Pokemon TCG. Even as far back as base set, spamming trainers was just a part of the game. So it is a bit of a head scratcher as to why they ban cards like Lusamine, but they don't ban cards like Versus Seeker that essentially do the same thing. Which part of the problem with recycling cards is that it elongates the playtime of matches, and in competitive play those matches are timed, and so you don't want to create a situation where players are just stalling until the end, and if they just happen to have one more prize card than their opponent, then they win, whether they were technically really going to win that match at the end anyway. And one thing that exemplifies that is Lysander's Trump card, which was banned from Standard when it was legal, and then further banned in Expanded. And I think that this one is very understandable because you basically use all of the cards that you want to use from your deck, and then you play Lysander's Trump card and you get them all back, and then you can just recycle over and over again. And it also removes a win condition from your opponent, because sometimes if you deck out, you just lose. If you overdraw, that's your fault and you lose the game for it. But Lysander's Trump card made it to where that was no longer a problem. You could really just play through your deck as many times as you wanted, and that of course was a problem. The last banned card on this list, and the most recent to be banned, is Jessie James, a card that I've been looking forward to, but it was banned from Expanded before it even hit the shelves in America. And this was the Pokemon Company being a little bit proactive this time, as if you discard a Weezing using Jessie James, then your opponent has to discard 3 cards instead of 2. And in Standard, that's not really a problem. Discarding 3 cards from your hand isn't all that game breaking. But in Expanded, where red card is legal, you run into the same problem as with Delinquent, where you can reduce your opponent's hand size to just 1, on your first turn, and that does create a very unfair advantage for you. And the same could be said for late game if you wanted to combo Jessie and James with Reset Stamp to further put your opponent at a disadvantage. So you could get them at the beginning and at the end. Either way, it does create an unfair advantage. And that seems to be the metric by which all ban decisions are made, although it's typically supporters that are banned, and I don't understand why it's almost always supporters and not certain overpowered Pokemon, other than the fact that the Pokemon are expensive, and that's how you sell each individual set, is by what holographic EX or GX Pokemon are sold in it. So while it can be confusing, these are all of the cards currently banned from the expanded format. Like I said, there aren't currently any cards banned from standard. If they are, I will be uploading a video and keep you updated on the expanded format as well, so stay tuned to the channel. I will be getting back to some Neo decks pretty soon, so look forward to those. Find me on Instagram at DrunkShuckle, and until next time, bye.